Okay. Everyone happy with that? Okay.
We can go live, eh? But nothing on my side. Refresh.
I think it's in the link.
I love this picture up on the screen because it brings back a lot of very vivid memories of my childhood. Eating the ducks with my grandfather, who passed away a few years ago. I remember walking up the channel that's the overflow to the dam and falling, putting my chin open and being rushed to hospital. I remember being chased by swans when there were swans around the Sondal Dam. And one of the weirdest memories is my father in a scuba suit fishing a motorized boat out of the bottom of the dam that my cousin had lost. It's an area that I care a lot about. It was a privilege to be able to buy a house here a few years ago. And this is one of the reasons for the initiative. I want to be able to put back into the area what it's given me. I care a lot about it. I care a lot about how I want it, as you all do. And that's just a big factor in the CID establishment. We all, I think, are on the same team. We all want to live in a nice neighborhood. None of us want to pay too much to achieve that. We all want equitability. So why are we here? We're here to present the draft business plan. We're here to get community comments on that draft business plan. We are here to hear everyone's voice. There are people in favor of the initiative and there are people against it. Everyone has the right to their opinion. We all have our own here, your own purchase their own. We are here to hear your thoughts, your opinions. And so we ask everyone to be respectful of each other. Whether you're for or against the set, we want to be respectful and mindful. We will, of course, as a steering committee, do our best to do the same. Ultimately, this will come down to a community vote. It will not be easy to get that vote. 60% of the community has to vote in favor of this for it to pass. And it's not 60% of the people who bothered to vote. It's 60% of the total community. So if you factor in 10% of people who probably just won't bother to vote because they don't read the emails or see the WhatsApps, it's more like a 70%, which is a significant margin. Therefore, those that are in favor, we urge you to tell people your opinions. Those who are against, of course, the title to do the same. Bit of a timeline. So today is really the kickoff of the meeting. The purpose is to share information, to tell the community as much as we can about this initiative and to answer questions. This is not really the platform for debate today. That would take too much time. The second public meeting, which follows a 30-day comment period after this meeting, where we will get feedback on the draft business plan from the community that we will incorporate to potentially updates to the business plan. The second meeting we can use as a platform to debate. After the second meeting, the voting will start. So we expect this to take place in the second half or the first half of next year. There'll be plenty of time before the voting starts for everyone to have their say, to discuss it, to provide us with written questions and expect answers. So I feel that everyone will be informed by the time the voting commences. We are very committed to making sure that everyone is comfortable, that they have all the information that they need to make a decision that impacts the property on the area around them. Steering committee, I felt the need to include this slide because we received emails questioning about the steering committee saying they're in it for themselves. They needed to launch a campaign to get themselves good salaries. And really, it can't be much farther from the truth. It's cost the steering committee a lot of money to put this together, personally. Like overheads, in the school hall, live streaming. Not to mention countless hours, time spent. The people in the steering committee are people like myself who basically paid for almost all of the Sector H CCTV cameras. This guy's like Jacques, who has been involved in installing over 100 cameras in the area. This guy's like Lawrence, director in the Sondal. Neighborhood Watch, Louise, whose husband is a patroller. Louise has been driving force behind this, which we're thankful for. None of us have any financial incentive for this to go through. We're doing this purely because we think it is a good thing to do. I think it will be good for the community. Ultimately, that is for you to decide and for you to judge. But you can rest assured that none of us have anything personal to gain. None of us, once the city is established, will get any remuneration for any services. We won't be refunded anything that we spent to get it there. Why was the process started? It's really a case of there being programs in the background to help the security of the area, such as the neighborhood watches, such as the camera initiatives, which a very small number of people support. It's hard to describe the amount of time it takes just to keep the camera network running. Technical issues, someone's router home isn't working, one of us to go out and try to problem solve it, get a UPS running again. It's trimming branches to not obstruct the view. It's reviewing footage after an incident. It's looking at alerts. The patroller network gives up the core hours of their sleep time at night, midnight to 3 a.m. shifts. Training, they're putting themselves in harm's way when they approach vagrants in the area. All of that damage that could occur from them damaging cars or that sort of thing falls on them. They can't recoup anything. If they're assaulted, it's their medical aid that has to pay for it. These very few people are supporting a lot of the security in the neighborhood, getting nothing in return, and the number of volunteers is just dwindling. Soon, many of us will probably walk away and just abandon these projects. It's too time consuming, it takes too much out of us, and very few of the community are assisting with even donations, not to mention time. Another issue that is coming is legislative changes around privacy cameras. With open networks like we have now, that's going to be something where operators of the network are going to have personal liability, which again, for volunteers getting nothing in return, it's not worth it. A city can have a much more robust framework that is legislatively acceptable. The last thing we want is the safety network that is helping the community to fall away. We have enjoyed a really good neighborhood. We have enjoyed relatively low levels of crime. It is resting on the back of things that are happening in the background, and those things are not sustainable anymore. It won't be long until it disappears altogether. We want to suggest a much more preventative, proactive approach to security than the reactive approach that's followed now. At the moment, there's an incident, we hear about it after the incident, we review footage, and it's too late to actually stop what happened. When you think about your own security, which most of you will say, I don't need a SID, I've got my own security. By the time your alarm kicks in, someone's already on your property. CCTV, you now have a video of someone on your property, but they were still on your property. Home response, I don't know the last time you had a false alarm, how long it took them to come to your house. Very long, an hour, 2 hours. Not enough time to make not quickly enough to make a difference. One of the big reasons that I funded the Sector H camera initiative was because I realized that by the time my other security measures have kicked in, it's too late. I've actually lost either someone is on my property stealing someone or something, or I need to actually defend myself and my family. I realized that I'd pay a fortune to undo time if something was to happen to my family. I really think that we need to move to a preventative step where there is actual 24 hours, 24/7 monitoring of cameras where patrollers can respond. The on-response companies that we're very grateful for are giving free services to us by responding on WhatsApps, patrolling the area every now and then, which is really just driving through. They're doing that for marketing. They're not paid for that. They've got no prerogative or requirement to be helping with public safety. They love responding to WhatsApps because it's good marketing. If you see Guardia or CDF or any of the other names come up regularly, you might be more inclined to change them on response provider. But they're not there for public safety, and they're not there to prevent someone getting to your home, even though there is some benefit to them, of course. One of the first steps when initiating a CID process is an urban management survey. About 400 people responded to the urban management survey in the area. That's about 20% of the 2,000 neighborhoods. The questionnaire was sent out by email to all residents and also public in the Tigerberger advertisement. The outcome of that, more than half know or are a victim of crime in the area. Interesting is that 86% of people have spent money upgrading their security. We're not talking about just installing security. They took an actual step because they realized that crime was increasing. They needed to spend more money upgrading. I calculated what the CCTV installation at my house is in terms of CID rates, and it's about 10 years worth of CID contributions that I would have made just to pay off my CCTV. I'm not sure I spent this money on a CID and not install the CCTV camera network at my home. 85% are concerned about homeless loitering, which is very well founded, and we'll get to some statistics later. 40% don't consider the security in the area to be good. That means that either the person to the left or right of you probably doesn't feel safe in their neighborhood, doesn't feel safe walking around at night, doesn't feel safe walking alone. The initial poll, and I will agree that this is not representative of the whole. There's some response bias in these statistics because the people that bothered to fill out the questionnaire probably were more in favor of the CID than against. But 8% initially said that they don't support the CID at all. 14% are neutral, 78% said they would support the initiative. It's a pretty good statistic in favor. It's enough for us to say the process is worth it. It's worth looking at, it's worth following the process. If that number came in at 40%, we probably would have just abandoned it. But we found a pretty good indication from the community that they wanted us to pursue this further. How does this work? This is going to be a very broad explanation. We'll get into some of the more intricate details a bit later in the presentation. A geographically defined area. So there are set boundaries, everything within that boundary is considered part of the CID area. An additional rate is charged from a municipal account. It's recovered from the owners by the City of Cape Town. That's paid over to a non-profit company. That non-profit company, which is semi-independent of City of Cape Town, will use that money to further the objectives in the business plan in accordance with approved budgets. It's a community-driven initiative, so that means that the residents have the power over the non-profit company, the residents are the voting members of the non-profit company. It's not something where City of Cape Town is taking control of the additional rates that you are paid. It's you that decides what budgets get approved. It's you that decides what initiatives and what projects are spent money on, or that we would spend money on. These are the boundaries of the CID, which you will see in the business plan. The one thing I would like to point out is on the right-hand side, you will see that the Kalsriver green area is included. We had a very good question on the Sondal community chat this morning about why that is. What's the point? Why are we spending money there? We don't expect to spend money there. We're not going to be building parks, building pathways. The reason is that other SIDs that have established told us that it was a big mistake that they made not to include corridors like that in their set boundaries. The reason being that they then don't have control over it in the sense if there are squatters, if there's crime, they have no prerogative to act. We do see homeless people setting up camp in that area. We do see fires being started. We wanted the ability that if something like that was taking place, if there was illegal structures being erected, that we would have the prerogative and the ability to take action. We expect to employ a law enforcement agent as part of the SID, and that person has the ability to search and seize, to make arrests if warranted, of course, and to issue fines or other measures. That's the reason why that's being included. The other areas form one continuous network. On the one area that's labeled Durbanville, that goes up to a boundary of the Durbanville SID, which is also a process underway currently. On the other side is Stellenberg SID boundaries. So we are seeing in the Greater Cape Town area a significant push to establish SIDs. In green, you will see the currently established and operating SIDs. There's 51 of them. In red is the ones like ours where the process is underway currently. It's a very popular approach being taken in many areas. Some of these are industrial, some of these are residential, some of them are mixed. The great thing that someone told me the other day is that only one SID in Cape Town has been closed down since the SID process was started in Cape Town. Every 5 years, the SID needs to be essentially re-established. It's an indication that where the SIDs are, the community is voting to continue with them. The one SID that failed very early, with almost no budget. So I feel like that was an anomaly in and of itself. If you look at Vredenkloof, where I lived before and after it became a SID, and it really was one of the big reasons why I'm pushing for the Sondal SID, because I saw it made a massive difference. That's been renewed now, I think, for the third time, so going into the 11th to 15th year. It's very close to us, so if you want to see what a SID can do, take a drive. It's not going to take you more than 10 minutes to drive through the area and see what's being done there and the kind of improvements that they've made. SID structure, so this gets a bit complicated, but bear with me. As I mentioned earlier, a non-profit company will be incorporated. So that falls under the Companies Act of South Africa, all the legislation and protections that the Companies Act offers. A board of directors is to be appointed. They're appointed by the members of the NPC, which are the residents. So any resident can apply to be a member, there's no cost, there's no liability. You then have a say at the annual general meeting. You have the ability to choose which directors oversee the SID. That could be someone like myself, members of the steering committee, or it doesn't have to be any of us. It's really up to the community to decide whether they trust to exercise oversight. There's a board observer that the City of Cape Town also puts semi on the board, so they're not a voting director, but they are there to ensure that public money is being spent appropriately, that the legal frameworks of the SID policies and the SID bylaws are being adhered to in order to ensure that everything is above board and clean. Funding comes, as I mentioned earlier, from additional rates. It's an additional rate that's added to the municipal account that then gets paid to the City of Cape Town, and the City of Cape Town monthly pays that to the SID, and then operates according to the approved budget. The budget that the community approved. Service manager, so we'll go in a bit more detail later. This is the operational person or company that takes charge of implementing the budget and implementing the budget plan. So that's either an employee that is employed by the SID or a company that is contracted by the SID to perform all of the functions on the ground. So the directors are in a purely oversight role, reviewing contracts, ensuring that proper procurement practices are followed, but the actual day-to-day legwork is being done by a service manager. Service providers can, of course, be subcontracted to do certain parts of the work, and the service manager will handle that process for the directors and board approval. Just a quick schematic here, so you can see the interaction between City and Cape Town and the community members is essentially financial. It's the receipt and debt management. Between City and Cape Town and the City is a lot of paperwork and oversight and approvals and ensuring compliance. The City of Cape Town has a City department with a number of full-time City employees that manage this process. Between the City and the community is the mandate that you've given us to implement the approved plan and the approved budget, and your involvement in the annual general meetings and ability to vote on matters. A few common misconceptions that I'd like to go through. So these are based on a lot of the queries that we receive by email. The one thing is that this won't replace your own response. We are talking about public safety here and not private safety. The city is not going to respond to your alarm going off unless there is indications of violence or something taking place. They're not going to get a trigger when your alarm goes off and go out to your home. The purpose of the security is to prevent people getting to your home, but once on their property, it is your prerogative and your requirement under your insurance contract to still have armed response. Estates, we rightfully get a lot of queries about what is the point for people living in estates to have a security budget, to have a SIP when they are safe at home. Again, it goes about public safety versus private safety. Public safety, we want you to be able to carefree go for a run, go for a jog around the dam. We want your kids to be able to explore the area, to go fishing, not be harassed. We don't want vagrants urinating on trees at the dam, which I have seen too many times. Your estate shouldn't be the jail that you live in. You still want to be able to go out and enjoy life. And that is what the security part of the budget is trying to offer. City of Cape Town doesn't manage the funds. It's managed by the non-profit company with their board, with a service manager. City of Cape Town doesn't have a say in how their money is spent, other than ensuring that the money is spent on legal things and within the framework. And this is the question we get most often is why are we replacing the municipality? Why don't we get the municipality to do the work? The city is about providing additional services. Municipality's only role is to provide basic services. So we're talking water, electricity, sanitation, refuse removal. We are not trying to replace those functions. We also don't want to do any work that the City of Cape Town is meant to do. We don't want to waste money on it. We're also residents in the area. There are rules within the CID policy that actually prohibit the CID from doing work that the city is doing. I think it's clause 36 in the CID policy, where urban maintenance first needs to be discussed with the CID before a program is followed, because we don't want to be dumping up on work. They still need to mow the lawns the prescribed number of times a year. They're still responsible for fixing potholes, all of that. What we want to do is propose additional services that makes the area nicer. We are very blessed with great green belts. We can improve these, we can improve the facilities. Public safety, that's national government to a great extent. We can argue that the police should be doing a better job, and I agree, but living in that bubble of denial is not going to get us anywhere. It's not going to get the city safer. We have the national government, we have the police, we should do the best in our power to help us safely. There's no probability ever of there being a policeman dedicated to patrolling our streets in our suburb. It's just never going to happen. And that is why we are proposing patrols 24/7 CCTV monitoring. That is additional. That's not something that you would or could expect the municipality to offer. We'll get into all the different benefits that we expect to get out of the SID. These are all things above and beyond what the municipality is required to do. The municipality is required to provide basic services to a standard that is equitable to the city as a whole. They're not expecting to give us much more than another suburb. If we want that, then we should do it. And that's up to you to decide if we want that or we don't want that. Budget breakdown. So I've spoken a lot about public safety. This is the aggregate of the 5-year spending. 53% is on public safety, and we'll get into those initiatives. 13% is environmental development. 12% is management. It's a bit lower than some other SIDs, given that we are quite a large SID. The percentage is a bit smaller. Urban maintenance and cleansing is about a tenth. 8% general expenditure is in line with other SIDs that we've seen. Social economic development is 4%. I'm going to go through each of these categories now to explain what we're proposing. The area around us is changing. If you've lived here for a long time, 30 years, you would know how small Durban was back then, how small Brackenfell was. We're all becoming much more in the city. The area is expanding around us at a very rapid pace. One can't expect the quiet neighborhood that we've always had to remain quiet. It will change over time. The pace of change is probably only going to increase. If we want to be safe in our neighborhoods and if we want to keep enjoying it and not have deterioration, we need to be eternally vigilant. And we have a number of propositions to achieve that. We've been asked for crime stats, so here they are. About 1 crime per day in the neighborhood. We received these stats from the SAPS, the Community Policing Forum. 1 per day averages, and so about every household every 6 years would be a victim of a crime. I'm taking broad generalizations here from the statistics, so bear with me. If we look at one of the smallest stats here, Fatal Women, Eversdale Heights, 30 on average. It's a fairly small area as well, that's why the number is lower. I wanted to give an idea of some of the crimes that were included in that figure. I live in Caledon Road. In the last roughly 2 years, within about 100 meters of me, we had 5 crimes that I know of. The neighbor to my right was held at gunpoint in their home, tied up, forced to open safes, car stolen. The neighbor to my left, their house was entered while they were sleeping, the entire family was there. 2 or 3 doors down, handyman was away, they broke into his house, stole everything, bed sheets, literally everything they owned. Another house in the corner, broken through the roof, emptied the house again. Just the other day, a house was broken into in broad daylight, laptops, PlayStations, that sort of thing stolen. That's 5 of the 30 crimes. I think you can agree that those are pretty serious crimes, the majority of them. These are not small things. I've got a WhatsApp today that I'd also like to read. To give you an indication of incidents for the past week, reported to SAPS and not reported, within the Kendall neighborhood watch borders, 1 theft of motor vehicle, 1 bicycle stolen, 1 cell phone stolen from vehicle, 1 laptop stolen, 1 attempted house break-in, resident disturbed the suspect. Only 3 of those were reported to SAPS, so probably these statistics are a bit light. I'm not sure what an acceptable level of crime is for anyone here. That's up to you to decide. We do know that there are people that are very vocal about being crime-free, which I don't think it is. Crimes that happen very close to my home, I felt were quite serious. I don't want to be held at gunpoint. I don't want everything I've bought ever stolen. I don't want to surprise a burglar in my home. It's very close to home. I don't know who of you will decide which of your neighbors it's okay for to be broken into and which not. I think we all should be aiming for very low levels of crime. we're obviously never going to get to zero. And we are not trying to sell that we will get to zero. We are saying that we want to make a concerted effort to bring crime down a lot. Kloof had a massive reduction in crime when they, since they initiated the CID, and that's what we want to see happen here. I don't think any crime, I don't think any person entering a home is an okay level of crime. I lived overseas for about 4 years, and what really struck me is how conditioned one becomes to crime in South Africa. It took my wife and I a really long time to acclimatize to being safe, and it's silly things that one realizes. It's when we went for a swim on the beach, every 10 minutes we'd be looking, or not every 10 minutes, every few minutes we'd be looking, is our stuff still safe on the beach? When we go for a buffet, it was quite funny because we are very used to somebody staying behind at the table with the stuff when everyone goes to eat. That's normal for us, we don't even think about it. The reality is that true safety, I don't think any of us have really experienced. Some people here would have lived offshore and maybe had that experience. I lived in an area which I felt was completely safe. And it really was a game changer. I really want that for everyone here to experience that. I grew up riding my bike around the neighborhood here late at night, no cell phone, and it was fine. Families are no longer prepared to accept that risk, and I think that's an indication that crime is a bit worse than we think. When crimes are occurring in the neighborhood or shared on the WhatsApp groups, we get told you're fear-mongering, you're scaring people, please don't do that. Now we're being told there's no crime. It's a bit difficult because we can't win. We don't want everyone here to live in fear hearing incidents occurring, but I've just read to you a few days worth of things happening. I don't think any of those you would choose for yourself. This is an indication of the nightly activity. So this is the number of alerts we get at night in the CID area, excluding Valmarie Park, which is actually quite big. There's a big camera network, so about 1,000 movements a month between the hours of 10 p.m. to 5 p.m. when really the area should be dead quiet. These are human detections, so I'm not talking about cars driving past. A lot is happening at night, everyone is sleeping. The patrollers see it, helping people out the area. It's not as quiet in the neighborhood as you think at night. Once you start looking at the roads, you realize there's stuff going on that we really don't see. Okay, so what do we propose? It's fairly simple really, but quite extensive. We have a current network of about 115 cameras in the area. We want to expand this to 200 through the CID. We want to have a 24/7 control room that monitors the camera alerts, sees what's going on, and then 2 patrol vehicles with patrollers that are able to respond to those alerts. We don't want patrollers just aimlessly driving around the area using up fuel and costing a lot of money. That's why we want to invest in an intelligence system where we can immediately respond to something happening or people entering the area. Part of how we achieve that is to reduce the length of our perimeters, so that's why we have a budget for fencing. It helps us to narrow where human movement is to certain areas where we can put a camera and see what's going in and out and reacting to that. So the budget at the moment includes a fence along the Legato between Bethany and Helderberg, which is quite a large open area, and again, the field at Fairtrees next to Mandaclare. So we will have gates in those fences for there to be movement during the day, but at night the CID will lock those up between specified late hours to reduce the entry and exit from the area. Another initiative that has been launched at other CIDs that we've had a really positive response about is park wardens. So these are really dual purpose employees. Their primary purpose is looking after the green areas, so trimming branches, cleaning litter, planting trees, looking after the nature areas and making sure it's beautiful, doing some weed control. But they're also really good eyes and ears on the ground in our busiest areas in our community. If vagrants are loitering, they can phone the security on the radio and get them moved out of the area. If anything suspicious is happening, they're able to report that. Lastly, and I alluded to this earlier, a lead officer. So the City of Cape Town actually subsidizes a law enforcement officer that we can employ as part of the CID, so 5 days a week during business hours. And they have a lot of powers that normal CID security won't have. So the ability to issue warnings and fines and that sort of thing, and prevent homeless people from settling in, for example, the council corridor. These are pretty comprehensive measures. We'd like as many patrollers as possible, of course. 2 is a pretty good number for our area. It was between 2 and 3 in the steering committee, but just adding 1 patrol vehicle is a significant cost. And we did consider the people living in the States in making this decision to reduce it to 2 instead. We do understand that people living in the States don't want to be spending a fortune on security when they already do. We felt that bringing it down to 2 was a reasonable level for the city, and being mindful of everyone's situation and being able to still give value for money to all. Environmental development, so this is one of the things that I'm most excited about. We all spend quite a lot of time, or the majority of us do, around the dam, going for walks, going for runs, walking our dogs, cycling, playing with our kids. And I had a quick drive around today, and there's two swings, I think, at the bottom dam and 2 Balmery Park. 3 are broken. The weeds are waist high. If you took your kid there, you'd probably lose them in the vegetation. The dams are overrun with weeds. It wasn't like that when I grew up. There was grass. Some of you might remember that. We'd really like to improve those areas. It's something that we all enjoy, and it's something that adds a heck of a lot of value to the community. So we've dedicated about 10% of our budget to this. Part of it is connecting walkways, so the City of Cape Town has been quite good, and we've seen a lot of additional walkways being added to the area. The long-term goal is that we have a nice track running all the way, almost from Fair Trees up to Balmery Park with pathways. So the City of Cape Town invests quite a bit in that, and we'll work with them to maybe just connect a few routes. So we budgeted for about 400 meters of additional walkway, and we'll see how to best use that. The green spaces, so we budgeted for 75 trees, 16 benches, and 10 tables with benches on slabs. I don't know when last you've seen what the benches look like at the dam at the moment, but they're all a bit hobbled and lying sideways, not very comfortable to sit on. So we'd like to spend money improving those facilities, adding a few more benches around the play parks. The play parks especially, we'd like to do more weed control, so we obviously won't be able to get rid of all the weeds in the Sondal. But when the kids are playing, we don't want them playing around in thorns, and it would be nice to have some grass there. So that's where we expect to spend most of the vegetation budget around the dams and around the parks, including that playground. Lastly, something that came out of the urban management survey was the need for a cycle track for children. I think people were building sort of makeshift tracks without permission in other places where they're not supposed to. And we'd like to build a proper, well thought out, well placed track for children. I think this will be a nice addition to everyone's family life in the area. Cleansing, so this slide and the next one sort of fall in the same category. 10% of the budget goes to a kiabaki with 4 workers that go around the area and essentially do a large number of small things, if I can put it that way. So litter removal, cutting grass, for example, now might be a good time to cut grass around the playgrounds. I'm not proposing all fields to be cut, but just so that people can continue to enjoy the activities even when it's spring and everything's growing very quickly. We don't have much illegal dumping, but when that occurs, it can be something that can be cleaned up. The bus stops, you've, I'm sure, seen vagrants living in the bus stops, taking all their garbage. People like taxis tend to not use the bins. Cleaning up around that, installing bins, and cleaning them regularly. Bins as well for people who walk their dogs to get rid of waste. And then road reserves, trimming around road verges, essentially everything that we can to get a more neat and tidy area that looks more beautiful. Really sure to make the area more desirable. It's one of those cases where it's not only one thing that we can all point to and say, well, looks terrible, this is a horrible thing that's to sort it out, but many, many small little things can really contribute to how well-rounded a neighborhood is. The same team will be involved in what we call urban maintenance. So this is where we can put a lot of pressure on the City of Cape Town to deliver services. Instead of us driving past the pothole 30 or 40 times before we bother to report it, this will be a team that's on the ground that can immediately report the pothole to SID, that can report a road bridge that's destroyed or a sewer cover that's been stolen. The objective here is, again, not to do the City of Cape Town's work, but we can work with them, and the SID manager can put a lot of pressure on the City of Cape Town to deliver the services that they're supposed to. It also comes back to plate marks. When 3 or 4 swings are broken, the SID can either just quickly fix it. In most cases, it's not being hard work, but they can also just report it to the City of Cape Town. If any urgent needs arise, let's say a pothole that's in a very key motorway that's damaging people's wheels, the SID can go and fix that pothole immediately instead of waiting for the City of Cape Town to do it. But again, the objective is not to do the City of Cape Town's work. It just gives us the ability to more quickly react to things happening in our neighborhood. Social development, so this is quite a small but high impact part of the budget, so 4%. Will be essentially donated to NGOs. So the main ones would be CAN and MES. CAN is the group that has done all the vegetation in the middle Manikis on Durban Road and traffic circles. So we propose to donate money to them. A lot of that money will be used in the area around us, so it filters back again to the community. MES is involved in a lot of the cleanups that you'll see on WhatsApp. So again, donations to MES to further those objectives. Earlier I talked about options for managing a SID. So there's 2 options really. The one is hiring an employee, a full-time employee of the SID, that must fulfill all of the SID's operational requirements. Now, the SID's requirements are very diverse. It is operational, like getting approvals of where to put a fence, to financial, dealing with employees, dealing with labor law, filing VAT returns, preparing annual financial statements, going through an audit. There's very few people that possess all the requirements to do a job like that well. A SID management company tends to work with various teams that have a lot of expertise in a wide range of different things. So you're working with 5 or 6 experts in their field instead of one person who's a master of none. We believe that using a SID management company is the way to go for Sondal SID. We are a very large SID. We have a number of programs that we expect to do. We have a number of projects. Will really benefit, I think, from using a SID management company to fulfill those with the wealth of experience. They have lots of mistakes that have already been made and learned from. And another benefit is no vacation for a SID management company. Our SID manager, who might be an employee, goes on vacation for a while, then things might go to a standstill for those few weeks. CID management company has a lot of economies of scale, which we'll get into shortly. And so we proposed in our draft business plan to use a CID management company, and we've outlined the reasons in our draft business plan. Again, the community can comment on this. We've laid out, I think, what the two options are. If you strongly feel that you prefer a dedicated employee, then feel free to send us an email, comment on this. This is just a suggestion that we've made. I'm going to invite now Jean to do a quick talk. So Jean is part of a CID management company that operates 13 CIDs. It's not to say that our CID will use Jean's company, but he has a lot of experience, and we'd like him to share some of the benefits as well, to provide some information to all of you about how a CID management company works and what the benefits thereof are. One of the CIDs that they manage is Tiger Valley CID. I think that's the closest one to us. Thanks, Jean.
Julian, I'm going to get you for this one. I didn't expect you to stand in front of people tonight, but anyway, good evening, everybody. I won't be long. As you can hear, I'm from a CID management company. I'm not professing that we're the best or that we are the be-all and end-all, and so I'm not going to try and market what we do. Julian asked me to just mention a few things. One is the popularity of residential CIDs. I've been involved in CIDs from the year 2000 when we did the Central City Improvement District in Cape Town. And for quite a few years, most of the CIDs were focused around the commercial and industrial areas. And one of the reasons for that was that we believe that people in residential areas felt that once that security gate goes closed and the electrical fence goes on and the alarm is armed and the beams are active, then you're done. And you don't need that security of a commercial or industrial area to actually secure your neighborhood. And more we have seen that people actually are starting to, can I put it that way, retake their neighborhoods and their public spaces back. They actually want to run, they want to cycle, they want to walk, they want their children to be able to feel safe in their environment. And so the popularity of CIDs in residential areas have grown to such an extent that I think that most of the CIDs that are currently under establishment are actually residential CIDs. And it was quite interesting for me, having been involved in the industry now for 24 years, to see the growth of residential CIDs in places like Louw, Clifton, Camps Bay, etc. So all of those areas are actually pursuing residential CIDs for the very reasons that they have just shown you. Then one of the things I want to add is that we, for instance, manage the Wynberg Improvement District, and the Wynberg Improvement District has gone through its fourth iteration of expanding its boundaries now. And although it initially was a commercial CID to start off, all three of the expansions have actually been for the residential neighborhoods in its vicinity to actually join. We've just ended up joining another 600 residential entities to the Wynberg Improvement District. I'm happy to share their sentiments with you, just to demonstrate what people experience. I just want to quickly touch on two other things. One, they asked me just to speak about what, other than the things that have already been mentioned, why sometimes a CID management company works. And this is me simply sharing with you my business model. It's nothing of a secret, but you have CIDs in Cape Town that have a budget of 106 million, believe it or not. And you have CIDs in Cape Town that have a budget of 380,000 for the year. And you can see how widely different those different budgets are. But the funny thing is that the property owner in the residential CID with a budget of R1 million wants exactly the same results as the business owner in a commercial area with a budget of 25 million. They still want the public space to be safe, they still want it to be clean, and they still want everything to be well maintained. And the only reason why a company like mine exists, and I'm definitely not even going to mention the name, is simply to say that in some areas you don't need everything all of the time. If you're in a big industrial sit, you might need, let's say, lawnmowers and brush cutters every single day in order to keep up with the grass cutting. But in a small residential sit or an area with not too much grass, you don't need those tools every day if you want access to it. And by able to share those resources amongst a number of sits, the actual cost of owning and operating that equipment and having that availability reduces. And that's just one of the benefits of having a management company, and for the fact that all of those bits of pieces of equipment and so forth is available when you need it. And the same goes for the control room. When you have a control room that actually offers or services more than one city improvement district, the synergy is unbelievable. And we have found that we were blessed with the fact that we have all of these areas in one control room, and as crime or potential crime or any incident moves from one area to another, we're actually able to track and proactively act against those threats. And that's another benefit when you have an economy of scale. So I think those are the most important parts. One of the things that I can say that I've heard a lot this evening is the issue around a community WhatsApp group, or several for that matter. And I can tell you now that our community groups are extremely busy. And when I say extremely busy, if you've got certain sets and you've got thousands of property owners within those sets, and businesses and their employees, you can imagine the amount of influx of information that we get. But it's also one of our biggest advantages, because using our continuous control room coverage of 24/7, 365, we're able to react to those WhatsApp and community interactions basically immediately. And this is one of the things that a lot of people say, what is the benefit of a sit? And I can tell you this now, one of the biggest benefits is that people actually listen and react. Because a lot of times people feel that they are entering a number or a complaint into a system and getting a reference number, and you never know where you are. And with the personalized service that a city improvement district brings, whether it's a group of employees or a management company, it really doesn't matter. But the reality is that there's that personal interaction and somebody that actually knows your neighborhood and actually takes care and actually wants to improve it. Julian, I don't know if there's anything else that I should have added. I think that's fine, and I won't take all of your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Julian. The slide everyone is here for, I think, what will it cost? So we're looking at a sit rate of roughly 110 Rand per billion Rand of property value, so that's after that. Discounted for inflation to today, that's about 100 Rand per billion. We are fortunate that most of the property values in our area fall within quite a small margin. It increases equitability. There are obviously a number of property owners on the higher end of the scale in our area, especially here in Zafta State, where most of the properties are 8 million plus. But for the vast majority, 75% of our residents will be spending less than 400 Rand a month on this. You will see the band between 300 and 400 is almost 60%. Non-residential sits, we did have a question about this because it's not mentioned in much detail in our business plan. Non-residential properties will also pay a sit rate. It's 45% higher than the residential sit. We're talking guest houses and schools, other non-residential. We're not talking churches and cemeteries, which are exempt. Non-residential is only about 3% of the property value in the area, so it's not a significant chunk, but they do have a significant impact on the area. So you can imagine that there is much more traffic for non-residential property than for residential one. They're also able to claim the VAT back in most cases, so that reduces the 45% extra liability. It's not the prettiest slide, but certificate done made me put this in. I wanted to put the SID rate in a bit of perspective, and when I put it in perspective, I don't mean to reduce its significance. I just want to create a framework. If one looks at the SID as something that helps to protect your property value by ensuring that crime is at a manageable level and ensuring that the area stays desirable and that there's demand for property. And you compare that to car insurance where you pay 20 times more per rand per year to protect that value, then the SID rate seems fairly reasonable. Also, if one compares it to your property price growth rate in the area, so that's roughly 7% for the last couple of years, you've got 69 times of the gain you keep 1 year you give to the SID. I'm quite sure that the SID will add more property value than it costs. So I think, yes, it is a cash outflow every month, and I don't mean to minimize that. But I do think that over the long term, you will get that money back and you will get more of it back than you put in. The SID rate is only about 1% of the total growth that you get every year on the value of a property through inflation. We're getting very close to the end. I just wanted to sort of sum up the key aims that we had when setting out this draft business plan. The one is obviously protecting your family. This is the one that's most important to me. I want to be able to tell my wife that I've done everything in my power to keep her safe. It's also about keeping others around you safe, making sure that you can go out and enjoy the area with as few qualms as possible. We do live in a very nice, very desirable area, and I want to keep it that way. Things don't tend to improve with time in South Africa unless you work at it. They tend to deteriorate. I don't think there's any reason to believe that our area will, in and of itself, improve over time if we don't do something about it. As I mentioned earlier, we are becoming all the more inner city for Durbanville as it expands outward to Visantakal, as it expands outward to Pacific, as Brackenfell expands. We're becoming more and more center, and with that, there's much more traffic coming past, there's more foot movement. It's going to be more and more difficult to keep up with crime rates. And lastly, we all want to have a say. I'm sure you've all felt that you are begging certificate time for certain things and not being heard and nothing's happening. I feel, and as you mentioned, the groups are active. If you raise something, it's going to be dealt with quickly. Someone's going to take an interest. You're going to have some power over the area that you live in and not just leave it to other people to decide for you. Just a few last details, and we'll get to Q&A. So the business plan is available on our website. You're also welcome to see a printed copy at the Durbanville Public Library. A few people have already gone to the library to read through it. Interested parties register, so everyone is automatically an interested party. That just means you've got skin in the game if you're a resident. Other people who are consider themselves interested parties are welcome to add themselves to the register to be taken into consideration. Next step would be the second public meeting, so we expect that to happen in March. After the public meeting, if there's no material adjustments to the business plan following comments, the voting will start. So there's quite a bit of time until that commences, but that's the next step. One of the things that we need for the SID is office and depot space, so that's somewhere where the SID manager or the person that will be on the ground most of the day, as opposed to SID answer emails, answer calls, that sort of thing, meet with residents if they need to be met with, and also where some of the cleaners are able to store some of the things that we want to, that sort of thing. That should be within the CID boundaries. So if anybody knows of a sort of semi-commercial space, please get in touch with us. We'd like to get some more details and see if that's an option. Okay, this is how you comment. So up to 30 November, so that's just more than 30 days from now, you can submit comments to us over email. We will evaluate each comment and criticism and suggestion and how that might impact the business plan. A revised business plan can then be submitted following everyone's comments for the second public meeting. You're also more than welcome to send us questions on the email address. It does take us a few days to reply, one of jobs, but we do get back to everyone in as much detail as we can. Lastly, we have a contact preferences form at the link there. If you could please go and fill that out if you haven't, it helps us get an idea of whether you want to get regular email updates or not. And you're also able to submit comments on that form if you wish to. That's the last slide. So we're going to be going into Q&A next. As I mentioned at the start of the meeting, the purpose of this is to be able to get information across as efficiently as possible. This is us submitting the draft business plan for comment. So we want to keep this focused on answering questions and giving information. I know there's lots of people that want to debate this, and I'm very happy to debate it as well. That's more for the second public meeting where that will be the focus. So I'm going to ask that we stick to questions on the business plan, on the CID process. More than happy to answer those questions. We don't really want to take too much time getting stuck into debates about security and that sort of thing. Of course, you have the right to have those opinions and to voice them. And we're happy to discuss that with you. And if there's people that want a platform at the second public meeting to address the audience, we can facilitate that as well. So feel free to get in touch. So I'll start Q&A in just 2 minutes or so. I think there's some people that might not want to be here for Q&A. It gives you an opportunity to take a quick exit. So yeah, thanks. Get the microphone to you. Ja, so Afrikaans, die vraag sal ek in Afrikaans beantwoord.
I'd like to ask you if I can make an input. I understood that I would have the opportunity to make an input at this meeting as well. And it's not so much question and answer, and it's certainly not a debate. It's just my views having researched the issues involved. And Would that be possible?
Sure, I think we can do that. But let's maybe get to the questions, actual questions first. And then when we see there's no more questions, we can give the mic to you. Is that fine with you?
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Ricardo CNE. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very enlightening, and I must admit that I'm undecided. But thank you very much. The question that I have is around process. And maybe it's coming from a lack of understanding. I'm very happy to pay for something that's going to bring me a benefit. We are going to be paying the City of Cape Town, and we're going to then have to rely on the City of Cape Town to pass on that money to the city. What guarantees do we have, especially in view of the history of municipalities and what they do with people's rights in this country? So we can say the City of Cape Town, yes, we have a favourable political dispensation, but there's no guarantee on that. So what safeguards do we have that our money, which is paid into the city, will find its way into the city? Thank you.
Thanks. That's a good question. So, unfortunately, the City of Cape Town is quite well run, clean audits, best run municipality, I think, in South Africa by any metric. But to answer your question, there's a finance agreement that is concluded between the city and us. So that's an enforceable contract. We would be able to take the city to court if they didn't honor that agreement, because essentially they are just receiving or collecting those funds on our behalf, but it is the NBC's funds and not the City of Cape Town's. There's also a CID policy and a CID bylaw which describes that. So short of them being in legal default, there's no mechanism by which they may withhold funds. If something like that was to occur, yes, they want to take legal recourse. The other option could be to close the CID. So a CID can be closed by the council if a majority of the residents submit an application to close the CID. It can close the CID for any good reason, which is also included in the CID policy, and then there's another reason, another way that I don't quite recall right now. But yes, I think if the worst would then come to pass, the community would have the power to close the CID immediately. It wouldn't even need to wait till the 5-year term ended. Does that answer your question? You're welcome to follow up.
It does answer my question to a certain extent. I'm not saying that it's going to happen. It's just that, you know, you see what happens in municipalities when they're paying ESCOM and they do this and that and the other. But do we have the power to unilaterally close the city? Or does it have to be in conjunction with the city? Because the city now has a right to collect our fees or whatever it is. But do we have the power to unilaterally close the city?
The council would essentially make it, okay, so there's two scenarios. So the one is during the 5-year term that's been approved. So during the 5-year term, you would need to submit to council to be able to close the CID. But yes, council would need to approve that. So yes, you're right that there is some way that the City of Cape Town would override that. But the longest you would be stuck would be essentially to the end of the 5-year term, where automatic all the members then have to decide for it to be restarted. So yes, that is a risk. I think, at least with the current dispensation, it's a fairly remote risk, and I do also believe there's enough legal protections for this. June, I think, has answered that for you. Okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so I am from the City of Cape Town. So just in terms of the payment of the CID. So we've been paying CID since 2000. With the city has been under control of the ANC, DA, country DA. When the ANC was in charge of the city, the DA was against CID, and now the DA is in charge, the ANC is against it. But ultimately, as Julian said, we've got bylaws, we've got policies that actually protects this money. So from the city side, And now I'm talking about the city. The city supports city individual districts. Because the city has realized it cannot do everything on its own. Its budget is shrinking, the population is growing. I think we run about 4 million people in the Greater Cape Town that we onboard to. So that is happening. But in terms of closing the city, so yes, the one option is where majority of property owners, in other words, for the establishment you do 60%, for closing 50% plus one. In other words, just the simple majority. Submit the application to the city to close it. That's option number one. Number two, as a non-profit company, because at the end of the day, it's going to be a non-profit company that runs the city under your control. And then a motion is put forward on the agenda of the company to voluntarily wind up the company. In other words, 75% vote in favor of that motion. And if that motion is passed, then the city is closed. And the third option is that's where the city becomes involved. And that normally happens where there is more corruption. And we actually go through the process with it. But that's the last resort.
Thank you.
Answer your question.
Yeah, just a question regarding the area that the city covers. When I looked at the map, I see that Greenville, adjacent to the golf course, is not included. Just wondering if there's a reason why.
Yes, we'll go back to quickly. The green belt next to the golf course. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't actually have the answer to that. I'm not too sure. Would you mind sending us an email with that question because then we can look into it? Thanks. I think I'll just email to you. Dis van die 2000 mense. So, kom ons sê net 400 mense bother om te stem. Dan gaan ons nie net wegkom met 'n paar honderd votes nie. Ons moet 60% kry van die totale inwoners. So dit maak dit natuurlik baie moeiliker om dit actually deel te kry. Nee, daar gaan geen dienste wees wat ons word vervang nie. Ek verstaan die vraag. So, clause 36 van die SID policies sê dat vir enige sulke goed wat ons wil doen, moet ons met die director van daai departement in die City of Cape Town praat oor wat ons wil doen. Want ons mag nie duplicate wat hulle reeds doen. So daar sal sekere goed wees wat ons dalk ekstra wil doen wat naby is aan dit, maar ons mag nie net vervang nie. So die doel is nie om dit te doen. Ek weet daar gaan baie keer 'n fyn lyn wees dalk tussen hierdie spesifieke ding en daai spesifieke ding. Maar ja, niemand van ons wil vasbandeer wat ons klaar van betaal nie.
Sorry, my name is Rod. I'm not happy about when it looks at the levy, the percentage of the municipal taxes. Why can't it just be a fixed fee? Because I don't understand. It's like for example, if you're in the estate, your property value might be valued a bit more because of security, etc. So why are you penalizing? And then you said with the SID, property prices go up, which means there's going to be an increase in your levy. So I don't understand this connection between municipal taxes and the levy. I feel it should be a fixed fee, and then it could be that we all contribute. Secondly, I feel this thing seems to be addressing the symptoms and not the root pause because we do have a law in the country. Last Easter, at the opposite Fairmont, there was a group of homeless that just moved in there over the weekend. And I mean, there's really nothing that you could do because they were quite, they knew the fact that most people were away for the long weekend. And there's not much you can do. So for me, what are you doing in terms of the legislation to actually, so if you find someone that's doing something that's wrong or in a place where it shouldn't be, what legislation is there in place? And what will the CID add so that we can actually remove whatever the problem is? And then for me as well, my experience with City of Cape Town is that they just decide on a valuation and you must just pay. I mean, last year they did a valuation on me and then they expected me to pay retrospectively from February all the way back to September. And it's happened twice already, you know. So I don't know, yes, you can appeal the valuation, I understand, but I don't feel comfortable with the levy being linked to anything with City of Cape Town or government. I think if it's a community project, I think it should be a fixed fee determined by the community and not City of Cape Town.
Thanks for your questions. Okay, so fixed fee, the very simple reason is that the CID policy and the CID bylaw doesn't allow such a thing, so there's no legal mechanism for us to actually implement that. Even if I would want to, I just don't have the ability to do that. So that feature is just not available. And maybe the policy changes in the future, but that's what we have to work with at this stage. Property price increases, you asked how, you'll just keep paying more if your valuation increases. So we had a similar question recently on one of the groups about that. And the thing is that the budget is approved every year. So in the year with the municipal valuations increase, if our expenditure isn't expected to increase by the same amount. So let's say price inflation is 7%, CPI is 4.5%, which is the midpoint of the SARB band, then the CID rate, the rand per million, should actually decrease. So I guess your valuation might increase, but the percentage of that you're paying will decrease. So ultimately, you're still going to be paying the same amount, the same funding, fund the same expenditure. So unless someone tries to, let's say, use the fact that valuations are increasing to increase expenditure with the same amount, your rate won't just stay the same. The objective is always just to match expenses with income. The Fairmont example, so Fairmont, I think that actually City of Cape Town has increased, or is in the process of increasing the lease of that area to Fairmont. So they're actually going to move those fences to the estate on the one side and that portion with the trees, so that's less of an area. But I know your area was more, your question was more general than just that specific scenario. So the lead officer that we have with the CID is someone that has the power to implement legal recourse against something like that taking place. When it comes to the security services, if there's launching all that sort of thing, then they can motivate the people to leave. So that is effective. I mean, we've been doing that for many years with the neighborhood watch and the controllers. It is effective. It's not a case of us just being able to ring up the police to do something because they might respond to something like that. Just the reality, not, the theory is that we'd be able to have law enforcement and police just answer a question like that immediately, but it's just not likely. Then with the valuations, yes, if you get unrealistic valuation from CID, the best route to do is to object to it within the City of Cape Town's guidelines. Thank you.
Sorry, I can maybe just respond in terms of the flat rate. So yes, Julian said the city's got a bylaw policy in terms of the rate that is approved. But at the end of the day, everything must come from national legislation. So at this point, the only piece of national legislation that actually allows us to set up city improvement districts is the Municipal Property Rights Act. There's one small little section, section 22 within that, which allows the city to declare an area a special rating area, because that's actually what's going to happen. So because it's the Property Rights Act is determined via valuations, so therefore it must be a rating amount. So it's the reason why it's not a grant, but 100 rand per million valuation. And just in terms of the worst nightmare, so currently the city does the general valuation every 3 years, but the long-term vision for that department is actually to go from 3 years to 2 years and then ultimately do a general valuation every year to make sure valuations are made market related. Yes, object.
I just want to say, I've got a number of questions, but I'll send that to you afterwards. 53% of the budget goes to security. Many of us, well, let's look at the first of the 7 regions. There's quite a difference between the different regions in terms of the incidents, etc. I live in Sondal. I've lived here for 45 years. I walk these streets every day, and I sleep there every night. If 53% goes to safety, many of us have spent thousands to secure our own properties. Many of us live in small estates where we pay a heavy duty on being more secure. How, if this company is now going to deal with this whole area, how am I going to feel more safe after what I feel at the moment? Because I've not been attacked. I mean, I can't see that this company, are they going to bring in more bodies, more people walking around, seeing that somebody doesn't steal a bicycle or whatever? Am I going to feel more safe? Because many people, you know, the moment something gets stolen from a house or whatever, there's a robbery about it. You have to see to it that your property is well secured. I think it's your duty. And if I've already spent so much money to do, like myself, going into an estate, paying over 3,000 rand a month for a guard to be there 24 hours. Now I have to go and dish up between 400 and 800 rand more per month for more security. What I just want to know is, how am I going to feel more secure when this company now comes and whatever it's going to do? Maybe that person can tell us what they're going to do. Whether they're going to have more people in every one of those regions, whether they're going to have more vehicles moving around, etc. Thank you.
Thanks. I think that was commentary rather than a question. It's ultimately up to you to decide, of course. So it comes back to, again, to public safety versus private safety. We do want everyone to be able to enjoy the public spaces. You've lived there for 45 years. You might feel comfortable walking on your own around the dam, and have done so for many years. Many other people don't. You know, if you maybe still have young kids at home, you might want them to be able to cycle freely around the Sondal Dam. If you had a young wife who wanted to be able to go for a jog without you, my wife makes me walk with her even though she's got a German Shepherd, because she doesn't feel completely safe. So, yes, I will gladly admit that people not living in states are going to have a greater benefit from the safety than you that does live in the state. But I don't believe that it's just for those people. It is for the entire community, and it's for when you step your foot outside that door. Your estate should not be the jail you live in. You want to be able to freely move and freely enjoy the area. And We just really want, sorry, I want to speak from the perspective of a husband. I want my wife to be able to walk out the door and not be concerned that something's going to happen to her. And it's a very simple desire, it's a very simple want. We've had a very young girl, I think, contacted one of the steering committee members also said, she doesn't feel safe just going for a run or that sort of thing, or going for a cycle. Some of you in the community, have lived it for a long time. It might not be that is your main desire or want anymore. For younger families, maybe it is a bigger concern. So maybe yes, in your specific case, you live in a state, you're an older gentleman, maybe this isn't going to tick all of your boxes. We want to do the greater good for the greatest part of the community, and we're not going to be able to tick every single person's every box. So again, it's going to ultimately be for you to decide. If you feel that, yes, this isn't going to increase your happiness, then vote against it. It's your prerogative. There's going to be a lot of other benefits as well around improving the dams and that sort of thing. Yes.
Real exact incidents, how many incidents? Actually, I'm talking incidents now, I'm not talking break-ins or whatever, because this seems to me not more about your house, but it's about out in the streets.
I don't think this excludes incidents happening outside the house. I think this is inside and outside the house in the area. So
Incidents, are they break-ins, are they?
I don't think SAPS releases that detailed information. So our hands are to an extent tied as to what we can get, but I mean, we can always go back to the community policing forum and see if we can get more specific statistics.
Very few people that I know on 45 have been attacked on the street. I walked down to the dam.
When I first moved into Facebook, one of the first videos I saw was a woman being attacked at the dam with a knife and screaming, and so it happens. I'm just going to see if there's someone else because you've had a chance to just get to them first and then come back to you. Any other questions? Thank you.
My question that pertains to the funding that you speak of, that CID will use the municipal platform for the funding. Now, that means that the money will appear, or what you own will appear on your municipal account. Now, you go every month and pay this municipal account. And when you fall into arrears, that is where the problem comes in, because you don't have to pay your full municipal account. You can buy a portion of that municipal account. Now, at the moment, there is currently no consistency in terms of the legal department of the municipality as to when they take legal action. They take legal action against some owners when they have 20,000 rand in arrears, and they take legal action against some owners when they have 3,000 rand in arrears. And this is from the mouth directly from the ombudsman. So you can go to the municipality as many times as you want, and you can make an arrangement. The only condition for that arrangement is that your municipal account would then have to be paid by a court order. You pay a lump sum, you pay a monthly amount, and an additional amount in terms of your arrears. And you can make that arrangement as many times as you want. Now, I'd like to know, this extra portion that you speak of, this 110 rand per million, is that going to be part of the reason why the municipal or the legal department of the municipality is not going to take legal action against you? Because if that is so, you're stuck. You're going to constantly be in arrears, and I can guarantee there are many people that are in arrears. You just need to stand at the counter every day. You need to go there on a Tuesday. You need to see how many people are waiting to see an ombudsman in the municipality to see what they can do, or they receive a letter of demand because they're in arrears. Now, that extra portion per million, I want to know, is that one part of this? Because if you get into trouble, financial difficulty, and you want to sell your property, you are liable for municipal clearance. Does that extra amount for the CID that people are not paid, because if there is a majority vote for this, The minority is going to be obligated, the minority is going to get that amount on the municipal account every month, whether they like it or not. And if they can't pay, because there are people in this area that are battling, whether you wish to believe so, that there are people that are well, there are people that are battling financially in this area. And even an amount of 380 rand extra on the municipal account is going to be hard. In light of the fact that Eskom wants to escalate the electricity tariffs, my question to you is that extra CID money going to be part of why a legal department in the municipality is going to proceed with further legal action?
Thanks for the question. So I might defer part of this answer to the gentleman from City of Cape Town if he knows the answer. What I do know is that from the CID's perspective, we're only allowed to embark on this process if there is a certain collection ratio in the area. I think the minimum is 95% of ratepayers being up to date with their municipal accounts. I think the collection ratio that we had is basically 100%. So I think there's very few people falling in that bracket in the area based on the information that we received. The CID must allow its budget for 3% bad debt. If the collection rate is very high, then we get that remaining amount. I assume that, yes, it will still form part of your municipal debt. I don't think it will just be written off. And I do think it falls under the same collection requirements as you state in the legal recourse. I don't know, gentlemen from City of Cape Town, can you confirm if that's correct or not?
Thank you. I just wrote it down just to make sure I cover everything. So yes, this is going to be these additional rates, in other words, it's new rates. So it will be part of the municipal account. So in other words, if you default, the municipality looks at your total municipal account from where the action is taken or not. And then so just in terms of people not paying or struggling to pay, so any person that qualifies for any form of rights relief, they are exempt from paying the additional rate. So that's part of this model. And then before we started the process with the steering committee, from our side, we actually did a collection ratio for the area over a 12-month period. Because at the end of the day, the area can't put additional strain on the city's cash flow for non-paying. And to be able to continue with this process, the area had to have a collection ratio of at least 97%. And the collection ratio was way beyond that. So from the city side, we're not concerned from a year's perspective. And then just looking at CIDs in general across the city, because we've got 54, and we do monitor those collection ratios every month. And for the last how many months, the collection ratio across all CIDs at an average of 100% collection ratio. So people in the city areas pay because they actually see the value.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I just want to know how those regions were compiled. Because I'm chairman of a estate as well, and I mean, surely a better way of doing it would have been to involve the chairman of the estate to do a little survey in the estate. I just think it's you're kind of just throwing everyone into one pot, and I'm saying 60% agrees everyone must go with it. I don't think that's the proper way to have gone about it. We have had incidents that side of the world, Eversdale Heights, yes, but the estates came together and helped the Eversdale Heights area. We installed cameras,
So there is that community interaction, but I have to feel this is being forced onto us, and I don't like the way it's being done.
Yeah, I'd like to try the idea and ask you a question. So it's not really practical to cut out little estates from the map, and I don't think it will be allowed either. Because the reality is, again, it's about public safety. If you live in a estate, you're not just staying there, you're also going to that. You'll also enjoy what the public areas have to offer. So, yes, I totally get where the guys in the estates are coming from, and I'll again it, but yes, you're getting a slightly. Yes, that is good. Okay, I think I understand your question better. Okay. Yes. It's more practical to have very clearly defined square boundaries between main routes like that. So that's a factor. You're welcome to give us a formal comment on our email that you disagree with the set boundaries, and then we can take that into consideration. Maybe just be quite specific on which section that you would suggest that we cut out, and then we can look into the comment in more detail.
Thank you, Batan. Firstly, just thank you for all this effort and hard work to put all this together. I support it 100%. I hope we get to the required votes. And ultimately, I think this is going to be a benefit to everyone in the long run. And if after 5 years you're not satisfied, then just don't vote against it the next time around. So that's my position. Thank you very much. I support it, and I just want to add some positive comments as well. So anybody else have positive comments, please write it as well. Thank you.
Thanks. I think that was commentary on the question. So what I'm going to do is just ask if you still want to ask a question, then I just put up your hand. Okay. So those two, and then we'll get into commentary for people that want to give commentary. Thanks.
Good evening. I'd like to share my sentiments. I also support the sir, and thanks for everything that you've done so far towards into this position. However, I've stayed in Kraaifontein for about 10 years, and then I found myself fortunate enough, if you may deem it as such, to move into the Sondal area. I stayed in Kraaifontein for 10 years, and my house was never broken into once. At the beginning of the year, I've been staying in my house for 4 years. I've been staying here for 3, and they've broken into my house, I think, around about January or February. A few things stolen. We left for about an hour. The insurance didn't pay out. So with that background being given, seeing that your focus and your budget is on public safety with 53% towards public safety, and we're speaking about the infrastructure towards the 24/7 surveillance cameras. My question is, will we as private residents have the ability to also, from your own private capacity, install these cameras so that it can be monitored? Because from the surveillance that we have, from a reactive perspective, we have facial recognition, but nothing could have been done. Whereas the 24/7 surveillance in terms of camera and security, from a private perspective, and if it could be monitored on a proactive perspective, that would definitely add more value, because a lot of these statistics probably comes from house breakings and whatnot. So back to the question, will we be able, and will your network be able to accommodate a huge influx in AI cameras, artificial cameras that you can install and have monitored by the server? Thank you.
Thanks. So the answer is yes and no. So yes, if you had let's say a public-facing camera on a property that was pointing at the road, technically we could integrate it into the network. But because of the way the legislation is going, these have to be very closed private networks. So you might put that camera up and give us access, but then you will not be able to access it anymore. So maybe there's technical ways around that, but yeah, I think the priority would essentially be owned cameras in the community, and we'd want to have enough of them up. But yes, I think if there's people that are willing to pay and install their own camera on their yard, essentially give that to the SID to form part of the network, then I'm pretty sure that we would be able to accommodate the technical needs. There was a question, I think, over here, Springbok Jersey.
Thanks. I do have a question, but given that some people are giving commentary either for at the moment or against this at the moment, and it's predominantly because of the high proportion allocated to public safety. So I agree with some people's sentiments that I think public safety is not as bad as the budget tries to justify. My question is back onto the funding model from a municipal rates perspective. Can it be in a tiered context? In other words, similarly like electricity or water usage, in other words, that your first volume versus the second volume can be at a different rate. Is the answer yes or no to that one? Because that would have been a way to convert a sort of into a fixed fee type of model, because I fully agree with the gentleman that's left now. It's not fair to have 2,000 households not sharing with the public of all of the public elements of all of this in an equal capacity, and then it's effectively wealth funded, the rich subsidizing the poor. It's not a fair model.
Yeah, I can totally get those sentiments. I'm very fortunate that my house is on a very upper band as well, so I'll be paying 1,000 a month in SID rates. I wish I could pay 300. To me, it's a privilege to be able to contribute that to the community because I'm in a fortunate position. Some people will feel that way, many others will also just feel begrudgingly that, okay, I'm paying double what the next guy's paying. Totally get that. Unfortunately, the parameters, and as the gentleman from City of Cape Town said, that's also pushed out from national government, which is not be able to do a lot like that. Thanks. You can go next.
Sorry, I jumped in there. Just seeing as the levy is a concern in the cost of it. I've noticed that did you say that it's capped at 25% of your municipal rates? And is there any way that we can? Do we have to? I guess my question is: do we have to go for the maximum of 25%, or can we go for a lower percentage of our rates?
Look, I think the SID rate percentage-wise is such that it's never going to approach 25% of the municipal tax rate because your municipal is also based on the valuation. So I'm not sure if I'm understanding your question correctly, but I don't really think there's going to be a case where the SID rate is going to be high enough to broach the 25% cap for them. And that 25% cap is specified in the bylaws and the SID policies, so I don't think we can override that in any case. But yes, that would have been a lever that we could have used to cap it, but we don't have that available to us. So is that again? No, what I'm saying is that, yes, the 25% is prescribed by law. Yeah, we can't adjust that.
Sorry, again, excuse me, this is coming from ignorance. The over 50% that you're going to spend on security, the way I understand it, it's more a deterrent as opposed to anything else. Because how's it practically going to work? You're going to have all these cameras, you're going to have people driving around, but you can't stop somebody walking in your area. You can't physically stop somebody driving around. So you can't physically stop them from committing a crime other than having measures in place to deter them. Am I correct? How are you physically, like if I'm walking in the street at 4 o'clock in the morning, do you have a right to come and ask me what I'm doing? Because I'll tell you, it's a free country.
Yeah, so there's grey areas that one works in. We will have a law enforcement officer that has more powers than the SID security. But I think Jean will be able to confirm with you that these security companies within the legal framework that they are able to operate in, that will just be one company that supplies the controllers of the vehicles. are able to quite effectively manage crime and move people out of the area. Yeah.
You're not allowed. You're not allowed. It's a free country. It's a constitutional democracy. So we cannot tell people that they don't have the freedom of movement. But you can make that person very well aware that you are watching him and that you are in his vicinity and that he is actually now being watched.
That's what I'm saying. It's more a terror.
We call it correct, but it's called it is called very simply an interruption of the opportunity for a crime to take place. I'll give you a good example. All of us have beating hearts about people scratching in bins, walking down your road with a shopping trolley. It's that very same shopping trolley that actually is used to cart the stolen property out of your neighborhood. What if you can take the shopping trolley away? Because you can. Because you can get a legal mandate from ShopRite, Checkers, Hoovers, etc. that states that you are acting on their behalf as a trolley recovery agent and that you can remove that trolley from that person. It's clearly marked. If you look at the handles of the trolleys, you can now see that it clearly states this is the property of Hoovers. And that you can present a letter as a city improvement district to say that trolley does not belong to you, you have no reason to have it. Please take the content of your trolley and we'll take the trolley. It immediately discourages the person from being in your neighborhood. And it's not to deny him, because that's where we have the social upliftment program, but it's to deny the opportunity to use, to actually commit a crime. And so what we have found, and I have probably close to 900 cameras now coming into my control room, what we found is that we are able to detect people and make them know that we are watching them and that they we are aware of their presence in the area. They quickly go to the area where it's not. And if you practice that principle continuously, consistently, all of the time, 24/7, criminals go to easier places. And that's the simple answer I can give you. If you're really unsure, come and visit us, open invitation, and I'll show you how it's done.
I accept that. That's what I'm saying. It's a deterrent.
It is a deterrent. You cannot possibly.
And there is one boss.
That's fine.
If we go with the furniture management, if we go with this company, for example, or any company, are we going to have a service level agreement with these companies?
So I just want to highlight that a company like him wouldn't be the security service provider, it would be a subcontractor like SJC. But yes.
You would be the manager, because already he's saying for 900 cameras there.
Yeah, so
you would be one of something competing for services. So would we have services?
you'd have the same if you were with Chubb or any other company that has many clients, but yes, there's a service level agreement with a company like the SIP manager, with the subcontracting security company, and that would be the board's responsibility essentially to review and sign appropriate SLAs, and that's where it's important to have knowledgeable directors chosen by the members to serve as the directors of the NPC. People that have experience working with those kind of contracts are definitely valuable. We'll come to you next, I promise.
Julian, thanks for the initiative. I've been here 2 hours now, and it only dawned on me just now that we are not putting a fence around this big neighborhood with access control gates. This is not what you're supposed to do.
I'd love to be able to, but no, we're not allowed to.
Well, can I ask why not?
Because it's public roads and public parks, so anybody in South Africa is allowed to access that. They're just not allowed to come on private property.
Okay, I understand that, but I mean, I've been to Joburg and Pretoria over the past couple of weeks, and there are many neighborhoods that are totally fenced off with a gate.
Those are developed as security developments, whereas, like, let's say Valdevie, that was a development that was developed as a security estate.
No, it's not. It's existing neighborhoods from many years ago that are now
I don't know what the structure is, but there's a fence around the whole thing, and there are gates, and no one is denying you access, but you have to pass through a gate where there's a camera, and you can still enter it, but for me, that's a much better deterrent than what we've discussed thus far.
We can try and look into how they're doing that, but I can't think that there is a way for us to do that is legal. Maybe they've got other bylaws in Johannesburg that allow something like that. I think we would definitely have seen that in other neighborhoods in Cape Town if it was something that was allowed. I mean, we can try and get you a clear answer on that. I think the best is, I don't know who you are, but if you can send us an email with that question, then we can look into it and reply to your question.
Yeah, I will send you an email with examples of
that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks for your patience.
I wonder if I could use the podium just to be able to refer to my notes.
Potentially, go on this.
I think my input will be quicker than most of the questions. Thank you, Chairperson, for the opportunity to make my input. Although we'll present this, my input is fully endorsed by my wife, Sharon, who is the owner of our home in Durbanville. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very professional business plan we have before us, emphasizing the benefits of a special ratings area, SRA, for Durbanville. But I have concerns regarding 4 issues. Firstly, the legislative framework. Sondal CID is a non-government organization or NGO established in terms of the City of Cape Town bylaw regarding a special rating area. 60% community support is required, but there is no independent voting authority to oversee this and no independent audit of this vote count. Money collected as rates will be handed to the NGO, but the NGO is not subject to the controls on expenditure of public funds, for example, the PFMA. And there is no elected official responsible for NGO's expenditure. Only on NGO steering committee there may be someone. This appears to be a subversion of democracy, a recipe for a second wave of corruption, which the SRA establishes the legal framework for. I'm surprised that the Western Cape political leadership is implementing SRAs and that it hasn't been challenged as unconstitutional. Once established, this SRA can only be terminated by council, which is highly improbable and in practice impossible, since council approved the SRA bylaws in the first place. Secondly, my experience with Bidvest municipality, which is also in the Western Cape province. My wife and I have a holiday home in Nature's Valley, where a special rating area was established last year. Despite expecting an increase in rates of about 300 Rand per month for my property, as indicated in the NGO's business plan, the increase from June 2023 to July 2023, excluding any consumption actually used, amounted to 766 rands, an increase of 26.0%, about 5 times the rate of inflation at that time. A letter objecting to the SRA in Nature's Valley that I had sent to Bidvest municipality was passed to the NGO for a response, with the municipal manager repeatedly writing in a covering letter, please see the response from the NVSRA. The municipal manager did not respond to my concern that the community support vote count was highly dubious. claiming that I was one of only 2 ratepayers who objected to the NVSRA. This was easily shown to be false when I walked around the block and numerous people signed a petition objecting to the SRA, many expressing gratitude that someone was doing something to stop it, which I was unfortunately not doing. Objections were simply swept under the carpet. Thirdly, affordability. The Sondal CID marketing or business plan refers to rates, rebates for pensioners, but in practice this applies to persons 60 years or older earning 7,500 Rand or less gross income a month. Pensioners aged 60 years or older earning more than 22,000 Rand a month can receive no rebate. I doubt that any property owner in Durbanville could have an income of less than 22,000 Rand per month, what with medical aid costs, bond costs, municipal costs, and so on. But any additional cost of 300 Rand or 750 Rand per month will nevertheless be significant to younger families with school-going children and to pensioners. My children and grandchild all live in Switzerland, so this additional local rates tax may prevent my wife and I from visiting them as often as we would like to. Every ratepayer in Durbanville would like to choose how they spend their extra cash, if any, and 1,000 Rand a month was a steering committee may be taken over by leaders with more dubious agendas, such as self-enrichment or worse. While the SRA may begin by targeting homeless people, which is reminiscent of gypsies first being targeted in the 1930s in Germany, it could transform into suppressing other minorities, controlling citizens when lockdowns are imposed by the United Nations World Health Organization, remember COVID, and possible future emergency environmental disasters or scenarios imposed by the UN. The legal framework and surveillance cameras will all be in place for control of citizens as described in George Orwell's book 1984. Vehicle registration identification software exists today, and facial recognition software is already being envisaged for social welfare recipients. International news reports suggest that such technology is already used to oppress people in some countries. I strongly believe that we should all resist enabling such a future. I especially request the steering committee of the Sondal CID to consider the bigger picture regarding the future of our community and the role that you are playing. I request the chairperson of this meeting to include my input in the minutes of the meeting, and I submit a transcript of my input to the chairperson for attaching to the minutes of the meeting. A few copies of this transcript are also available to other interested parties and the press. And I've signed it, and my wife has signed it. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. We'll include this in the minutes. Any other questions? Okay, last question. Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Yes.